Have you ever spent hours creating the perfect system, only to abandon it 2 weeks later? You color-coded your calendar, downloaded the latest productivity app, built the perfect Notion workspace, what a beautiful planner, created morning routines, even watched videos on how successful people organize their lives. And for a little while, everything worked. Then life happened. A busy week, an unexpected crisis, a change in priorities. And suddenly, the system that was supposed to make your life easier became another source of stress. Now you feel guilty because you are not following your own plan. So you start over again. This is the question I want you to think about. What if the problem isn't that you lack discipline? What if the structure you have built was never designed to support the person you actually are? Because there is something I've learned from working with high capacity individuals. A structure that requires constant willpower isn't supporting you. It is depending on you. And that's the difference we are going to explore today. By the end of this video, you will understand why so many productivity systems fail intelligent people. They fail them. Why structure often becomes another burden instead of a source of freedom, and how to build a structure that actually supports your emotional stability, your decision making, and long-term consistency through my Internal Coherence Recalibration Model. So let us begin. When people feel overwhelmed, what is the first thing that they usually do? What is the first thing that they usually do? They create more structure, a stricter schedule, a longer checklist, more routines, more rules, more systems. And initially, that feels productive. But here is the problem. Most structures are built around tasks. Very few are built around people. Think about building a house. A good architect doesn't start with the furniture. They begin with the foundation. They ask, what kind of ground are we building on? What weight must this house carry? What environment will it face? Yet, many people build their lives in reverse. They optimize calendars before understanding themselves. They build routines before clarifying values. They organize time before organizing priorities. The result? The result is beautiful systems built on unstable foundations. And eventually, these systems collapse, not because they are poorly designed, but because they are disconnected from the person using them. Yes, the systems are disconnected from the person using them, so they eventually collapse. This is where many people misunderstand structure. They think structure exists to control behavior. I believe healthy structure exists to support behavior. There is a huge difference. Imagine wearing a cast after breaking your arm. The cast isn't there to punish you. No, it is there to support healing. Now, imagine wearing the same cast after your arm has healed. It becomes restrictive. What once supported you now limits you. The same thing happens with personal systems. Some people create rigid structures that leave no room for real life. Then when something unexpected happens, the entire system collapses. High performers do this without realizing it. They build systems that work only when life is perfect. But life is rarely perfect. Healthy structure must be flexible enough to absorb pressure without breaking. Think about Spider-Man. His strength wasn't simply his powers, it was his adaptability. He constantly adjusted to changing circumstances. The same principle applies to your life. The strongest structures aren't rigid, they are resilient. They are resilient. This is one of the most important principles I teach. External structure can never permanently compensate for internal disorder. Never. Let me say that again. External structure can never permanently compensate for internal disorder. Here is why. Imagine organizing a cluttered room. You buy shelves, storage bins, cabinets, everything looks neat. But you keep bringing in unnecessary clutter every day. Eventually, the organization system fails. Not because the shelves were bad, but because the input never changed. That is exactly what happens internally. People organize their schedules while ignoring emotional overload. They optimize routines while avoiding unresolved conflict. They improve productivity while neglecting internal alignment. The result? They become more efficient at carrying unnecessary weight. That is why my internal coherence recalibration model begins inside. Because when your internal world becomes aligned, your external structure becomes dramatically simpler. Yes, your external structure becomes dramatically simpler when you're internally aligned. So what does healthy structure look like? What does a healthy structure look like? It is not complicated. It is not complicated at all, but it is intentional. Here are 4 characteristics. First, it reflects your values. Your calendar should reveal what matters most, not merely what feels most urgent. If your structure consistently pulls you away from your values, it isn't supporting you. It is competing with you. Second, it protects your energy. Many people schedule every hour, but leave no margin, no recovery, no reflection, no emotional processing. Eventually, the schedule becomes the source of exhaustion. Healthy structure protects your capacity, not just your productivity. Third, it simplifies decisions. Every unnecessary decision consumes energy. Supportive structures remove repetitive decisions so your mental capacity can be invested where it matters most. That is why routines matter. Not because routines are impressive, because they preserve clarity. Routines preserve clarity. Fourth, it allows recalibration. It allows recalibration. So every week, ask yourself, is this structure still serving the life I'm trying to build? Life changes. Responsibilities change. You change. Your systems should evolve too. Your systems should also evolve. Healthy structure is dynamic, not static. Here is where everything comes together. When your internal world is coherent, structure stops feeling restrictive. It starts feeling liberating. Think about Captain America. People often admired his discipline, but underneath that discipline was remarkable alignment. His beliefs, his values, his priorities, and his actions moved together. They moved together. There wasn't constant internal negotiation because internal coherence reduces decision fatigue. When you are aligned internally, structure no longer feels like something imposed upon you. Yes, when you're internally aligned, structure no longer feels like something imposed upon you. It becomes a natural expression of who you are. That is why two people can use the same exact productivity system and experience completely different results. One feels trapped, the other feels supported. The difference isn't the planner. The difference is the person using it. Because sustainable structure grows from internal coherence, not the other way. Let me leave you with this. The purpose of structure isn't to make you work harder. That is not the purpose of structure. It is not there to make you harder, to make you work harder. No. It is to help you live better. If your routines constantly leave you exhausted, if your productivity system makes you feel guilty, if your schedule keeps pulling you away from what matters most, you don't necessarily need more discipline. You need a better structure. One that is built around alignment instead of pressure. One that protects your peace instead of stealing it. One that supports your emotional stability instead of depending on endless willpower. Because the strongest structures don't demand the best version of you every single day. They don't. They support you on your best days and they sustain you on your hardest days. That is the kind of structure high performers eventually learn to build. Not one designed for perfection, one designed for real life. Remember this, a structure that only works when you're motivated isn't a sustainable structure. A truly supportive structure continues working even when life becomes unpredictable. That is exactly what internal coherence makes possible. When your values, your priorities, your emotions, your beliefs, your identity, and your actions begin working together. Structure becomes less about control and more about freedom. Because The goal isn't to build a life that constantly demands more from you. No. The goal is to build a life that consistently supports the person you're becoming. If this message resonated with you, comment here below with the word structure and tell me, what is one part of your current routine that feels like it is demanding more from you than it is giving back? If you are ready to build a life that supports your emotional stability, restores decision clarity, and creates sustainable performance through the Internal Coherence Recalibration Model, subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the channel because lasting success isn't built on more pressure. No. Lasting success is not built on more pressure. It is built on structures that work with you, not against you.